Daniel tore my Columbia admission letter in half while his mistress cried on speakerphone. He did it in our living room, in front of the wedding photo I had paid to frame, and told me a good wife did not run overseas when her husband needed her. I did not scream, I did not beg. I only turned my phone slightly toward him, let the camera keep recording, and watched the first piece of my old life fall to the floor. The sound of tearing paper brought me back to life. For 1 second, I thought I was still dying in that private hospital room, hearing Daniel's award speech from the television mounted above my bed. He had thanked his team, his investors, his board, and Nora Blake, the woman he called his oldest friend. He had not thanked me. Then I blinked, and I was standing in our living room again. The cream sofa was still new. The wedding photo was still hanging above the fireplace. My laptop was open on the coffee table, showing the Columbia Business School portal I had stared at until my eyes burned, and Daniel was in front of me, holding my printed admission letter. It was whole for half a breath, then he ripped it down the middle. "Daniel," I said. My voice came out too calm, almost strange. He froze for a moment, as if he had expected tears. In my last life, he had got them. I had cried so hard my hands shook. I had reached for the two halves of that letter like they were pieces of my own body. This time, I only looked at him. He was 31, handsome in the clean, polished way that made investors trust him. Before he spoke, his white shirt sleeves were rolled to his elbows. His hair was still damp from the shower. On his wrist was the watch I had bought him after his first seed funding meeting, back when I believed every sacrifice I made was an investment in our future. Our future. That phrase tasted like rust. "Do not look at me like that," he said. "You forced my hand. I forced you to tear up my admission letter. You were going to leave." His jaw tightened. 3,000 miles away, for 2 years, right when Haleworks is about to close its Series A, right when I need you here. You knew I applied. I thought it was a fantasy. He threw one half of the letter onto the table. "People apply to things, Grace. It does not mean they abandon their marriage." From the phone on the sofa, Nora Blake sobbed, not loudly. Nora never did anything loudly. Her weakness was always careful, polished, timed for maximum damage. "Daniel, please do not fight because of me," she whispered through the speaker. "I should not have called. I just panicked. I can take the pills alone." Daniel's face changed instantly. That was how I had spent 3 years of marriage, learning the order of his emotions. Irritation for me, softness for her, suspicion for me, protection for her. I watched him turn toward the phone. "Nora, stay where you are. I am coming." I laughed once. It was not a pleasant sound. Daniel looked back. "What is funny? You just tore up my future because your mistress cried." His eyes flashed. "Do not call her that. What should I call the woman who calls my husband at midnight, sends him photos from bed, wears the earrings he bought with money from our joint account, and now needs him to rush over because she cannot swallow a pill without an audience?" His face darkened. "She has anxiety. She has timing. Enough." He pointed at me with the remaining half of my letter still in his hand. "Nora almost died last year. You know that. In my first life, I had known what he told me. Nora had been fragile. Nora had been abandoned. Nora had been Daniel's first love. The girl he could not save when they were 22 and broke. Nora had needed help finding work, help paying rent, help with therapy, help with the brand launch at his company, help remembering that she was loved. I had helped too. I had cooked for her when she stayed in our guest room. I had transferred money when Daniel said her card was maxed out. I had rewritten her investor presentation when she wanted to join Haleworks as creative strategy lead. I had smiled when she sat beside my husband at company dinners. And when I received my Columbia offer, Daniel had told me the timing was cruel. In my first life, after he tore the letter, I stayed. I told myself marriage meant compromise. I told myself there would be another year, another program, another version of me that still had time. There was not. Haleworks grew. Daniel grew with it. Nora became indispensable. Because he made her indispensable, my models became company strategy. My notes became board decks. My savings became bridge funding. My name became smaller and smaller until it disappeared from the story. 5 years later, when Haleworks prepared to go public, Daniel divorced me quietly and accused me of leaking proprietary financial data. Nora cried in court. Daniel's mother said I had always been jealous of a sick woman. I lost the apartment. I lost my work. I lost the company I had built from the shadows. The night I died, Daniel was giving a speech in a hotel ballroom. Nora stood beside him in a silver dress, wearing my grandmother's pearls, then paper tore, and I was here. Daniel shook the torn letter at me. You are not going to New York. I lowered my eyes, not because I was surrendering, but because I needed to make sure my phone was still recording. It was. The camera caught his face, the torn admission letter, Nora's name glowing on the call screen, and my own hands resting still in my lap. Why? I asked. He exhaled, impatient now. Because I need you. For what? Do not make me list everything you already know. The investor dinner is Friday. The financial model still has problems. My mother is arriving next week. Nora is unstable. And if you leave now, she will think everyone abandons her. So I should give up Colombia because Nora might feel abandoned. You should act like my wife. I nodded slowly. In my first life, those words had broken me. This time, they clarified everything. Your wife, I repeated, not your analyst, not your unpaid operations manager, not Nora's caretaker, not the woman whose savings cover payroll when your investors delay funds. Your wife. He looked uncomfortable for 1 second, only one, then Nora whimpered through the phone. Daniel, it hurts again. He grabbed his keys. Clean this up, he said, nodding at the torn paper. We will talk when I get back. He walked toward the door. Daniel, he stopped with one hand on the knob. Did you tear it because you thought I could not get another copy? He turned, and there it was, the small, cruel smile I remembered from every moment he thought I was naive. You always need the physical thing to feel brave, Grace. Then he left, the door shut behind him. For almost a full minute, I did not move. I listened to the elevator doors open down the hall. I listened to the silence return to the apartment. I looked at the torn pieces of paper on the floor, then I picked them up. I smoothed the halves on the table. My name was split through the middle. Grace Hart, admitted, merit scholarship. I took photos of every piece. I saved the video recording in 3 places. I emailed it to myself, uploaded it to cloud storage, and sent a copy to an account Daniel did not know existed. Then I opened my laptop. The Columbia portal still glowed on the screen. Status, admitted, decision letter, download PDF. I stared at it until my vision blurred. In my first life, Daniel had convinced me that the torn paper meant the door was closed, that losing the object meant losing the chance. I had been so young in all the wrong ways. I had believed love was allowed to overrule my future if love looked desperate enough. This time, I clicked download. The letter appeared again, whole and perfect. I printed 3 copies. Then I opened our bank account. Daniel had transferred $2,000 to Nora that morning. The note said, for therapy. Last week, he had refused to pay my application deposit because cash flow was tight. I downloaded the statements. Every transfer, every payment, every temporary company expense I had covered, every hotel charge during business trips where Nora's name appeared in the reservation emails I had once pretended not to see. At 1:17 a.m., Daniel texted, Daniel, Nora is calmer now. Do not start drama when I get home. I looked at the message, then I typed back, me. Take your time. He read it immediately. Daniel, good. I am glad you are being reasonable. I took off my wedding ring and placed it beside the torn admission letter. For the first time in 2 lives, I understood something simple. He had mistaken my silence for obedience. He had mistaken my love for weakness, and he had mistaken paper for permission. By sunrise, I had booked a meeting with a lawyer, emailed Columbia admissions, and moved half of my personal savings into an account only I controlled. Daniel came home at 7:30 with Nora's perfume on his shirt. He found me in the kitchen, drinking coffee beside 3 fresh copies of my admission letter. His smile vanished. Where did those come from? The school portal. His eyes dropped to the documents. Grace. I folded the top copy and slid it into a folder. I am going to New York. His face hardened. No, you are not. I picked up my coffee. Watch me. Daniel did not shout at first. That was one of the reasons people believed he was reasonable. He knew how to keep his voice low, how to turn anger into disappointment, how to make control look like concern. He stood across from me in the kitchen, still smelling like Nora's vanilla perfume, and said, You are emotional. I am organized. You are hurt. I understand that. No, you do not. He rubbed his forehead. Grace, I came home exhausted. Nora had a panic episode. I spent the whole night making sure she did not hurt herself. And now you are punishing me for caring about someone who has no one else. She has you. That is not fair. Neither was tearing up my admission letter. His gaze flicked to the folder under my hand. I made a mistake, he said. In my first life, that sentence had been enough to pull me back. Daniel rarely admitted fault. When he did, I treated it like a gift. Now I heard what was missing. He did not say he was sorry. He did not say he would help me go. He only said the act was a mistake. As if the real problem was not his choice but my reaction to it. Then write that down, I said. What? Write that you tore my Columbia admission letter without my consent and that it was a mistake. His expression changed. Do not be ridiculous. I smiled faintly. There it is. He stepped closer. You are turning this into something ugly. No, Daniel, you made it ugly. I am making it documented. For the first time that morning, I saw uncertainty cross his face. I had learned the hard way that men like Daniel were not afraid of tears. Tears made them feel powerful. They were not afraid of anger either. Anger could be used against a woman, repackaged as instability, jealousy, emotional weakness. Documentation was different. Documentation had dates. At 10, I went to the bank. Daniel called 12 times. I let every call go to voicemail at the bank. I separated what was legally mine from what Daniel had always treated as his backup account, my salary from the consulting contracts I had taken before marriage, the small trust my grandmother left me, the savings I had quietly built when I still believed I would one day invest in Daniel's company properly and own part of what I helped build. The banker, a neat woman named Felicia, glanced at my face when I asked to remove Daniel's access from my personal account. Are you safe? She asked softly. That question nearly undid me in my first life. No one had asked that. Everyone had asked whether I was being understanding, supportive, patient, forgiving. No one had asked whether I was safe inside a marriage where my future could be torn in half on a coffee table. I am safe today, I said. I am making sure I stay that way. By noon, Daniel discovered the first closed door. He called again. This time, I answered. What did you do to the payroll reserve? He demanded. I removed my personal account from the automatic transfer. We needed that for Friday. No, you needed it. I did not authorize it. Grace, do not play games with the company. The company is not my husband. Silence. Then he said, Haleworks is our future. It is your company. My name is not on the shares. We discussed that. Yes, you said it would complicate investor optics if your wife appeared too involved. He exhaled sharply, because investors hate messy cap tables. Investors hate undisclosed liabilities more. Is that a threat? It is a boundary. He laughed once, cold and disbelieving. Who has been talking to you? I looked through the glass wall of the law office lobby, where Maya Chen was finishing a call. My lawyer. The silence on Daniel's end changed shape. You're what? My lawyer. Grace, you are embarrassing yourself. Noted. Do not walk into some divorce attorney's office because we had one fight. We did not have one fight. You destroyed my property, attempted to control my education, diverted marital resources to another woman, and used my unpaid labor for your company. I would like to understand my rights. His voice lowered. You are not going to do this. I already am. I hung up. Maya Chen looked up as I stepped into her office. She was in her 40s, calm, precise, and completely unimpressed by the kind of male confidence that had once overwhelmed me. Her desk held 3 folders, 2 pens, and nothing decorative except a small ceramic fox. Mrs. Hale, she asked. Grace Hart, I said. I am keeping my name. She smiled slightly. Good. Sit down. For the next hour, I told her enough. Not everything. Not the rebirth. Not the hospital room from another life. Not the years Daniel had not yet lived but had already shown me he was capable of. I told her about the letter, the recording, the transfers to Nora, the company expenses, the financial model I built. The fact that Daniel had not given me equity despite using my work to raise capital, the pressure to abandon school. Maya listened without interruption. When I finished, she said, Do not warn him again. What? People like your husband are easier to deal with when they believe they can still manage the narrative. Let him talk, let him text, let him underestimate you. I almost laughed. I can do that. I want copies of the bank statements, all messages about your admission, any emails where you contributed to Haleworks, drafts, documents, metadata, calendar invites, investor decks, anything with timestamps. I have most of it. Good. And Grace. I looked up. Do not go home alone if you think he may become destructive. For a second, I saw Daniel standing in our living room with my letter in his hands. He already is. That evening, I returned to the apartment with Maya's advice written in my mind like instructions for survival. Document. Do not provoke. Remove essentials. Do not Explain. Daniel's car was not in the garage. Nora's Instagram told me why. She had posted a photo of a candlelit table at Le Jardin, the restaurant where Daniel had proposed to me. The caption read, "Some people show up when it matters." I stared at it for 3 seconds, then I screenshotted it in the bedroom. I packed one suitcase, passport, social security card, birth certificate, grandmother's necklace, laptop, hard drives, original notebooks, Columbia documents, medication, a few clothes. I left the wedding album. I left the crystal glasses his mother picked. I left the framed photo above the fireplace. At 9, Daniel came home. He stopped when he saw the suitcase. The performance dropped from his face. Absolutely not. I zipped the suitcase. I am staying at a hotel tonight. You are my wife, I remember. Then act like it. I looked at him. That line worked better yesterday. His mouth tightened. You think leaving proves something? No, leaving prevents something. What is that supposed to mean? It means I know what happens when I stay. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Daniel frowned. What? I picked up the suitcase. He moved in front of the door. In my first life, I would have argued. I would have pleaded. I would have tried to make him understand that he was scaring me this time. I lifted my phone and pressed the emergency call screen without dialing. Move. His eyes dropped to the phone. Grace, move. For several seconds, we stood there, two people inside a marriage that had already ended, though only one of us knew it. Then he stepped aside as I passed him. He said, "If you walk out that door, do not expect me to chase you." I paused. That sentence had haunted me once. Now it set me free. I am counting on it, I said. The door closed behind me. In the elevator, my hands finally shook, not from regret, from release. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A photo appeared. Nora, in my kitchen, wearing Daniel's shirt, holding the mug I bought in Paris before our wedding. The message underneath read, "You can run to New York if you want. He always comes back to me." I saved the photo. Then I replied, "Keep the mug." 3 dots appeared. I turned off my phone before she could answer. The elevator reached the lobby. I stepped out with one suitcase, one folder, and the first clean breath I had taken in years. By Friday morning, Daniel had stopped calling me emotional. Now he called me selfish. His messages arrived in neat bursts, each one crafted for a different version of me he thought still existed. "Daniel, the investor dinner is tonight. I need the revised model by 3 p.m. "Daniel, I know you are upset, but punishing the company is childish." "Daniel, Nora feels terrible about everything. She wants to apologize." "Daniel, my mother is asking why you are not answering. Do not embarrass us." "Daniel, Grace, enough." I read them in my hotel room while folding my black dress into my suitcase. Not the dress he liked, not the dress he said made me look serious enough for investor wives, but not intimidating. That one stayed in the apartment closet. I packed the navy suit I had bought for my Columbia interview. I had paid for it myself after Daniel said the price was excessive for a conversation on Zoom. That suit had got me admitted. It would get me out at 10. I joined a video call with Columbia Admissions. My counselor, Priya, smiled warmly from the screen. "Grace, I am glad you reached out. I saw your email. I am sorry about the damaged letter, but of course the physical copy is not required. Your admission is secure." Hearing it out loud did something to my chest. Secure, not dependent on Daniel's permission, not held together by paper, not destroyed because a man ripped something in anger. "Thank you," I said. I also wanted to confirm the deadline for my deposit. "We received it this morning." I blinked. "You did?" "Yes. From your account ending in 4421, my grandmother's trust for years. I had treated that money as untouchable, an emergency fund for the kind of life I hoped never to need. In my first life, Daniel eventually used most of it to cover a company tax issue he called temporary. This time, I used it on myself. After the call, I sent Maya everything I had gathered. Then I ordered a car to the apartment building, not to go upstairs, but to leave the key with the front desk in a sealed envelope. The doorman, Mr. Alvarez, looked surprised. "Mrs. Hale, are you traveling?" "Yes." "Will Mr. Hale need anything?" I almost smiled. Even the building had learned to ask what Daniel needed. "No," I said. "He has everything he chose." At the airport, Daniel finally realized I was not bluffing. His call came while I was checking my bag. I answered because I wanted the recording. "Where are you?" he asked. "JFK Terminal 4, a pause, then a laugh. "That is not funny. It was not meant to be. You cannot leave today." "I can, I am. The dinner is in 6 hours. "I know, the financial model is incomplete." "No, it is." complete on my laptop. The version you have is incomplete. You are admitting you withheld company property. I am admitting you do not know how to finish what you claimed was yours. His breathing changed. Grace, listen to me. Whatever you think you are proving, this is not the way. Come home. We will talk about Colombia later. No, do not say no to me like that. The old fear moved through me, quick as a shadow. Then I looked at the departure board. New York to London, London to New York. New York to everywhere, all those doors. No, I said again. He lowered his voice. If you leave, I will tell everyone you abandoned me when the company needed you. Tell them. I will tell my mother. Tell her too. I will tell Nora. I laughed then, not loudly, but enough that the woman beside me glanced over. Daniel. Nora already knows. She has been sending me photos from my kitchen. Silence. Then he said, she was upset. She was wearing your shirt. Grace, I hope it fits. He sounded almost breathless with anger now. You are making a mistake. No, I made one 3 years ago when I thought being chosen by you meant I had been loved. Do not rewrite our marriage. I am not rewriting it. I am finally reading it correctly. He did not answer for one moment. I thought I heard the Daniel from before all this. The man who brought me soup when I worked late. The man who kissed my forehead outside City Hall. The man who said, when I build something real, your name will be on the door beside mine. Then Nora's voice appeared in the background. Daniel, are you coming? The car is here. The moment died cleanly. I smiled. You should go, I said. Someone needs you. Grace, do not get on that plane. I looked at my boarding pass. I already left you when you tore the letter. The airport is just logistics. I hung up at security. I removed my shoes, my laptop, my coat, and the last illusion that Daniel would become fair if I explained myself well enough. My phone buzzed again. This time it was his mother, Vivian Hale. I do not know what kind of wife runs away before an important family event. Daniel is under immense pressure. Nora has been nothing but kind to you. Fix this before you humiliate yourself. I forwarded the message to Maya. Then Nora texted. Nora, he is furious. You know he hates being disappointed. I typed back. Me. Then he should stop disappointing himself at the gate. I opened my laptop. I found the investor dinner folder Daniel wanted. The one he assumed I would send eventually because I always had inside were 5 spreadsheets, 3 scenario models, a risk memo, and a market map I had built over 6 months while Daniel slept beside me and Nora texted him hearts at midnight. I did not delete them. I did not send them. I moved them into my evidence archive, with timestamps intact. Then I opened a blank document and wrote, assets Daniel believes are his but are not. Under it, I began listing everything: models, contacts, deck language, market assumptions, vendor negotiations, pilot school district analysis. Nora's brand plan, rewritten by me, investor objection responses, cash flow rescue options. By the time boarding began, the list was 3 pages long. The gate agent scanned my boarding pass. Have a good flight, MS, Hart, not Mrs. Hale MS, Hart. I stepped onto the jet bridge and felt the years rearrange inside me. Behind me, Daniel's investor dinner was beginning to fall apart. I knew because Claire Benton, the only independent director on his board, emailed me at 7:42 p.m. Subject, quick question. About Haleworks model. Grace, apologies for the late note. Daniel mentioned you were unavailable. We are seeing discrepancies in the revised forecast. Did you prepare the final version he presented tonight? I looked out the airplane window. The runway lights blurred into gold lines. In my first life, I would have protected him this time. I typed carefully, Dear Claire, I did not prepare the version presented tonight. I am no longer involved in Haleworks operations. For clarity, any model attributed to me after today's date should be verified directly with me. I paused, then I added, I recommend asking Daniel for the original source files and revision history. I pressed send. The cabin door closed. As the plane lifted into the dark, I imagined Daniel in a private dining room, smiling too hard, explaining numbers he did not understand to people who could smell weakness through expensive wine. For the first time since my rebirth, I did not feel like I was running away. I was leaving the crime scene. Before the culprit realized the evidence was gone, New York did not welcome me gently. It took my sleep first. The city roared under my apartment window like a machine that never forgave hesitation. Sirens at 2 in the morning, trash trucks before dawn, footsteps in the hallway, radiators hissing like old anger. I rented a room in a 4th floor walk-up with peeling paint and a kitchen so narrow I could touch both walls at once. My mattress arrived before my desk. For the first week, I ate cereal from a mug and slept with my laptop beside me like a weapon. But every morning, I walked onto campus and reminded myself that I had chosen this. No one had sent me here as punishment. No one had allowed me here as a favor. I was here because the door had opened. And this time I had walked through it before Daniel could nail it shut at orientation. Everyone seemed younger, sharper, less damaged. They spoke in clean career arcs: consulting, private equity, product leadership, family business, social impact. When it was my turn, I said, I am Grace Hart. Before Columbia, I worked in financial analysis and growth strategy for early-stage education technology companies. It was the truth. It was also incomplete. I did not say I had done most of that work at my kitchen table while my husband took meetings under his own name. I did not say I had built investor decks between cooking dinner for his mother and answering Nora's tearful messages. I did not say I had crossed an ocean with one suitcase. Because the man who called me wife had torn up my future, I did not owe strangers my wounds. In Professor Elena Walsh's Applied Venture Strategy class, we analyzed a failing startup that had grown too fast on borrowed assumptions. The case was familiar enough to make my fingers tighten around my pen. Elena paced at the front of the room, silver hair cut to her chin, voice dry and clear. Founders often confuse narrative with evidence, she said. Investors may enjoy a beautiful story, but eventually someone opens the spreadsheet. The class laughed. I did not. She noticed. Ms. Hart, she said, you look unconvinced. I agree, I said. I just think sometimes the problem is not that the founder lacks evidence. Sometimes the evidence exists, but the founder does not understand it because someone else built it. The room went quieter. Elena tilted her head. Go on. I felt every eye turn toward me. In my first life, I would have softened the point. I would have made it less threatening, less sharp, less mine. This time, I opened the case packet. The company is claiming recurring revenue stability based on school district renewals, but the renewal cycle is not annual in practice. It depends on budget approval windows. Their churn risk is understated because they model customers as individual accounts rather than procurement clusters. I turned a page, and their customer acquisition cost looks artificially low because they excluded founder-led sales labor, if that labor is actually performed by an unpaid spouse, friend, or early employee. The cost still exists. It has just been hidden. Silence. Then Elena smiled. That, she said, is the first honest thing anyone has said today. After class, she stopped me near the door. You have seen this happen. It was not a question. Yes. Recently enough. She studied my face, not intrusively, but like she was reading whether I wanted advice or distance. Write it down, she said. I have not. Emotionally, structurally. If you ever want power in a room where someone has stolen the story, bring the structure, dates, inputs, decisions, consequences. People can argue with pain. They have a harder time arguing with a clean timeline. That became my first rule, a clean timeline. Daniel kept trying to dirty it during my third week. He sent flowers to the business school reception desk. White roses. My old favorite. Before Nora started posting them every time Daniel disappointed her and then made up for it. The card said, come home before we become strangers. I photographed the card and threw the roses away. That night, he called from an unknown number. I answered because Maya had told me to collect. Do you know how humiliating it is, he said, to have board members ask me whether my wife left because I mistreated her? Did you? That is not the point. It usually is. You made Claire suspicious. You made Claire suspicious when you presented numbers you could not explain. He went quiet then, softer. You used to help me. I used to believe helping you meant helping us. It did. No, if it had, I would have equity. He sighed. We were going to fix that. When things stabilized, I looked around my tiny room. My desk was a folding table. My lamp flickered. Outside, someone shouted on the street. I had never felt more stable. Daniel. Things were never supposed to stabilize for me. That was the point. You are letting that school fill your head with poison. No, it is teaching me vocabulary for what I already lived. His tone hardened. Nora says you sent her a cruel message. She sent me a photo from my kitchen. She was trying to reach out with my mug. Grace, ask her why she had access to my home. It is our home. No, it is an apartment with both our names on the lease and your mistress in my clothes. Another silence. Then he said something that would have broken me once. New York is making you ugly. I looked at my reflection in the dark window, hair tied back, eyes tired, face thinner than before, no wedding ring. I looked like someone who had survived the first cut. Good, I said. Pretty made me too easy to use. I ended the call. By December, I had built a life out of small refusals. I refused Daniel's requests for quick help. I refused Vivian's guilt messages. I refused Nora's bait. I refused to explain my choices to people committed to misunderstanding them. Instead, I studied. I worked part-time for a research center. I built models under my own name. I joined a venture fellowship. I learned how investors conducted diligence, how founders inflated metrics, how boards reacted when trust cracked. And at night, I built the timeline. May the 3rd, Daniel transferred $2,000 to Nora from joint account. May the 14th, Daniel asked Grace to postpone Columbia deposit. May the 22nd, Daniel tore admission letter while on call with Nora. May the 23rd, Grace removed personal account from company payroll reserve. May the 26th, Daniel presented model without Grace's review. June the 2nd, Claire Benton asked about forecast discrepancies. The timeline grew. So did the evidence archive. Then, in February, I found the first public trace of my stolen work. Haleworks uploaded a new investor teaser to a private database used by venture funds and MBA fellows. It was not supposed to be accessible to students, but my fellowship gave me limited access for research. I opened the document expecting irritation. Instead, I felt ice move through my veins. Slide 12. District Procurement Cluster Model. The title was Daniel's. The model was mine, not similar. Mine. My color coding had been changed. My notes had been cleaned. My caution flags had been removed. But the logic, the structure, the segmentation, the forecast engine, all of it came from the file I built at our kitchen table 2 years before. And at the bottom of the slide, in small gray text, it said, prepared by Daniel Hale and Nora Blake. I stared at Nora's name, then I laughed so sharply the student beside me looked over. Nora had not known what a procurement cluster was when I met her. She once asked whether gross margin was like profit but less corporate. Now her name sat under my work. I downloaded the teaser, I saved the metadata, then I emailed Elena. Subject: I need advice on stolen work. Her reply came 12 minutes later. Come to my office. Bring everything. Elena did not comfort me. That was why I trusted her. She read the Haleworks teaser in silence, then read my original file, then the exported metadata. She asked 3 questions, each sharper than the last. Can you prove when you created your version? Yes. Can you prove they had access? Daniel had access through our shared home drive. Nora received a derivative deck from me when Daniel asked me to help her prepare for a brand meeting. Can you prove harm? I paused. That was the question Payne never answered well. Harm felt obvious when someone stole the floor under your feet, but law, investment committees, boards, and courts did not move because something hurt. They moved because the harm could be named. They used my work to raise capital while excluding me from compensation and authorship, I said. They also removed risk warnings from the model, which may mislead investors. Elena nodded once. Good. That is the beginning of a real claim. Only the beginning. Yes. Do not confuse being right with being ready. I hated that sentence, then I needed it. In my first life, I had been right many times and ready almost never. I had known Nora was manipulating Daniel. I had known Daniel was using my work. I had known Vivian blamed me because it was easier than blaming her son, but I had not built anything strong enough to stand outside my own body. This time, Maya connected me with an intellectual property attorney. The attorney told me the claim would be complicated because I had worked informally, inside a marriage, and around a company where roles were intentionally blurred. Informal does not mean non-existent, she said, but we need precision, so I became precise. I reconstructed my work from old drafts and timestamps. I found calendar invites where Daniel asked me to fix the district model. I found texts where he wrote, "Can you make Nora's version sound smart?" I found an email to Claire from 2 years earlier where I had flagged the exact procurement cycle issue now erased from the investor teaser, and Nora, because she could never resist pressing a bruise, helped me. She began sending messages from new numbers after I blocked the old ones. Nora, Daniel told me you are trying to claim his work. That is sad, Nora. You were always good at spreadsheets, but Daniel had the vision. Nora, maybe if you had been warmer, he would not have needed me. I saved everything. Then came the message that mattered. Nora, you should have taken the hint when he tore up that letter. He chose the company. He chose me. You were just useful for almost a minute. I stared at the screen, then I forwarded it to Maya with one word, useful. Maya replied, excellent. Do not respond. I did not. Daniel did that night. He called from his own number for the first time in weeks. You are collecting messages, he said. Yes, at least we were past pretending. You are making Nora nervous. Nora should stop texting me. She is fragile. She is careless. She is not the villain in your story. Grace. No, you are. His breath caught. I had never said it that plainly before in my first life. I wasted years trying to separate Daniel's weakness from Daniel's choices. I told myself Nora manipulated him. Vivian pressured him. The company exhausted him. Investors demanded too much. Men like Daniel survived because women like me kept building softer explanations around hard truths. But the hand that tore the letter was his. The voice that told me not to go was his. The bank transfers were his. The erased name was his. You hate me now, he said. I thought about that. No. Hate still keeps a chair for you. I am removing the chair. He made a sound, almost a laugh, almost pain. You think a few classes and one lawyer make you powerful. No, I think not needing your permission does. You are still my wife, legally, for now. Do you hear yourself? Clearly. His tone shifted, becoming quieter, intimate, dangerous in the old way. Do you remember our first apartment? I closed my eyes. I did. A leaking ceiling, a second-hand table. Daniel eating noodles straight from the pot while I built his first market map. We were poor, tired, hopeful. Nora was a name from his past, not yet a shadow in every doorway. You believed in me when no one else did, he said. I believed in who you pretended to be. I loved you. No, you loved what I made possible. That is cruel. So was making me watch another woman live inside my marriage. He did not deny it. That silence mattered too. A week later, Vivian Hale arrived in New York. She did not warn me. She appeared outside my apartment building in a wool coat, pearls at her throat, mouth pressed into the expression she used when restaurant service disappointed her. I found her there after class. Grace, she said. We need to talk. No, we do not. She looked offended. I flew here. That was your choice. I am your mother-in-law. Temporarily, her eyes narrowed. Daniel said this school has changed you. It has improved me. You were never this hard. I was never this awake. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Do you know what people are saying? That you left because you were jealous of a sick woman? That you abandoned your husband when his company needed stability? Are you asking what people are saying or telling me what you helped them say? Color rose in her face. Nora is not the problem. Then why is she always in the room? Because my son is loyal. I almost admired the audacity. To everyone except his wife. Vivian's face hardened. You had no children, no real obligations. Daniel gave you a good life, and you repaid him by running off to play student while he carried a company. There it was, the belief underneath all of it. Daniel's ambition was a burden. Mine was a hobby. I opened my bag, pulled out a printed bank summary, and handed it to her. She took it automatically. What is this? Transfers from my personal account into Haleworks operations, payments to vendors, emergency payroll support, reimbursements never made, transfers to Nora from the joint account. Since you enjoy discussing obligations, I thought you should see who carried what. She scanned the page. For the first time since I had known her, Vivian had nothing ready to say. I let her stand there with the numbers. Then I added, if you came to shame me, bring better material next time. I walked past her. She called after me. He will not wait forever. I stopped at the building door. In my first life, that sentence would have sent panic through me. This time, I turned back. That is the first generous thing Daniel has done for me. Upstairs, my phone buzzed. A new email from Claire Benton. Grace, Haleworks is preparing a larger funding round next year. I am concerned about some attribution and forecast issues. If you are willing, I would like to speak confidentially. I stood in my narrow hallway, keys in hand, heart steady. Nora had called me useful, Daniel had called me his wife, Vivian had called me ungrateful, but Claire had called me by my name. I opened the email and wrote back, I am willing. The first confidential call with Claire lasted 22 minutes. She did not ask about my marriage. That made me respect her immediately. She asked about the model. When did you build the first version? 2 years before I left. Who requested it? Daniel. Was it compensated? No. Was there any written agreement assigning your work to Haleworks? No. Did you understand yourself to be an employee? No. I had no title, salary, equity, or contract. Did the company use your work in investor materials? Yes. Can you prove it? Yes, on the screen. Claire's face remained still, but her eyes changed. She had the expression of a woman watching a crack run through glass she had been told was steel. I suspected the forecast quality dropped after you left, she said. I did not know why. Now you do. I need to be careful. So do I, she nodded. Daniel is raising a Series B extension. If the foundation is compromised, investors need to know before funds are wired. There it was, the future bending in my first life. I had watched Daniel stand on stages with numbers I built and stories I shaped. Investors called him visionary, articles called Nora the emotional intelligence behind the brand. I sat at home, rewriting customer segmentation notes while Vivian asked when I would give Daniel a child this time. The foundation would be inspected before the house got taller. But Elena warned me again, do not make this revenge theater. She said after I told her about Claire, it is not theater if it is true, it can be both. Truth performed badly becomes easy to dismiss. I sat across from her in her office, surrounded by books and case studies. And the quiet authority of a woman who had watched many founders lie beautifully. What should I do? Become too good to ignore? So I did. I took every venture course I could. I joined diligence teams. I learned to ask questions that made inflated founders sweat without raising my voice. What customer behavior proves this assumption? Who owns the source data? Why does the forecast improve when retention evidence weakens? Which person built this model? That last question became my favorite. During my summer internship at Northstar Global Ventures, I sat in the back of a conference room while a founder presented a polished deck about AI tools for school administrators. He spoke fast, too fast. The partner beside me, Martin Shaw, whispered, thoughts. I looked at the retention slide. His renewal logic is wrong. Martin raised an eyebrow. Why? He is treating district expansion as organic product love. But the actual driver is grant timing. If the grant ends, his usage drops. Ask for cohort data by funding source. Martin did. The founder stumbled after the meeting. Martin looked at me differently. You have seen this movie several times. Want to help us avoid investing in the bad version? That was how I began, not as someone's wife, not as someone's hidden analyst, as myself. The work was brutal and clean. Founders pitched. We tested. We verified. We said no more often than yes. I learned that a no could be an act of integrity, a boundary with a term sheet attached. Meanwhile, Daniel Rose Haleworks survived the early stumble after I left. Of course it did. Companies rarely collapsed from one truth. They bent, borrowed, repackaged. Daniel hired analysts. Nora became chief brand officer. Their website featured photos of them standing shoulder to shoulder in front of glass walls in interviews. Daniel began telling a new story. My wife left early in the journey, he said in one podcast. It was painful, but it taught me resilience. Nora stepped in when the company needed heart. I listened to the clip. Once, only once, then I saved it. Maya filed our divorce petition that fall. Daniel refused service twice. The third time, he accepted the papers in front of his office building and called me within 5 minutes. You sent someone to humiliate me at work. I sent someone to deliver legal documents. You could have spoken to me. I did. You did not listen. We are not divorcing. We are, no. I looked at the Northstar office around me. Glass walls, whiteboards, people arguing about risk and returns. My laptop opened to a diligence memo with my name at the top. You do not get to reject reality because it inconveniences you. I built everything for us. No, Daniel, you built everything from me. He went quiet then, in a voice I almost did not recognize. He said, you will regret making me your enemy. There he was, not the wounded husband, not the misunderstood founder, not the loyal friend saving fragile Nora, the man who had always been underneath. I have already survived being your wife. I said, enemy sounds easier. He hung up. 2 days later, Nora posted a photo of herself and Daniel at a charity gala. Her hand rested on his chest. My grandmother's pearls were around her neck. For a second, the room disappeared. My grandmother had given me those pearls the summer before she died. Daniel knew what they meant. In my first life, Nora wore them at his award ceremony the night I died. I had thought that memory belonged to a future I had escaped, but here she was again, wearing what was mine. I enlarged the photo. The clasp was distinctive, a tiny gold repair near the back. Done after I broke it at 16. I sent the photo to Maya, then I texted Daniel Nora is wearing my grandmother's pearls. Return them by Friday. He replied an hour later, Daniel, they were in the apartment. You abandoned them me, they were in my locked jewelry drawer. Daniel, do not start a war over pearls me, you started it over paper on Friday. The pearls arrived by courier, no note, one strand, one clasp, one more piece of myself recovered. I placed them in a small velvet box and locked them away. Then I went back to work. By the end of my second year at Columbia, North Star offered me a full-time role. Elena took me to coffee after commencement. You know Haleworks may cross your desk someday, she said. I know. What will you do? My job. And after that, I looked across the street, where graduates took photos with families, partners, children, flowers. Daniel had not come. I had not invited him. I will tell the truth in a room where he can no longer tear it up. Elena smiled. Then you are ready. Daniel dragged the divorce for 18 months at first. He claimed he wanted counseling. When I agreed to one session for documentation, he spent 40 minutes explaining to the therapist that I had been radicalized by ambition. The therapist, a woman with tired eyes and excellent notes, asked him, "What do you mean by radicalized?" Daniel said, "She used to value family." I said, "He means I used to value him more than myself." The therapist wrote that down. Daniel did not request a second session. Then he claimed we needed time to divide property fairly. Maya sent a proposed settlement with bank records, reimbursement claims, personal property lists, and documentation of my unpaid contributions. Daniel's lawyer responded by calling my claims emotionally inflated. Maya smiled when she read it. "I love when they put contempt in writing," she said. Then Vivian got involved. She sent me a long email with the subject line, "A final appeal from your family." I opened it during lunch at North Star. "Grace, marriage is not a business contract. Daniel made mistakes, but so did you. A woman who leaves her husband for school cannot pretend to be blameless. Nora stayed when you left. She supported him. She became part of the company because she understood loyalty. If you continue this legal attack, you will destroy the man you once loved. Ask yourself whether a degree and a job are worth becoming cold and alone." I read it twice, then I forwarded it to Maya. Maya replied, "We may use this to show family pressure and narrative framing. Also, cold and alone is not a legal argument." I laughed so hard my coworker looked over. That laugh mattered. There had been a time Vivian's words could ruin a week. Now they were evidence. Daniel's company kept growing, but the growth had a strange shine to it. Press without profit, announcements without audited clarity, partnerships that sounded larger than they were. Nora became the face of empathy-driven learning, a phrase that appeared in every article and meant almost nothing. North Star tracked the sector closely. Education technology had become attractive again, especially companies claiming AI personalization and district-wide adoption. Haleworks appeared in market maps. Partners mentioned it casually. I said nothing unless asked. Martin eventually asked. We were in a Monday pipeline meeting when Haleworks came up on a list of possible growth investments. "Grace," he said, "you know this company, right?" Every person at the table turned toward me. There are moments when your past walks into your workplace and sits down like it belongs there. I kept my hands folded. "I know the founder personally," I said. "I also have historical knowledge of some early strategy materials. I would need to disclose a conflict before any formal review." Martin nodded. "Understood. Is the company worth looking at?" That was the question Daniel would later claim I answered with revenge. I answered it like an investor. The market is real. The product may have traction, but I would not proceed without deep diligence on data integrity, customer renewal quality, source attribution for strategic materials, and related party transactions. One partner whistled softly. "That is specific. It needs to be." Martin studied me for a moment. "Prepare a conflict memo. We may still review if compliance approves your involvement with guardrails." I did. I wrote the cleanest timeline of my life. Not the emotional version, the structural one: marriage to Daniel Hale, informal contributions to Haleworks prior to separation, no compensation or equity, documented dispute regarding attribution of early financial models, pending divorce, personal evidence held by counsel, recommendation, if North Star engages, require independent verification of all materials and recusal from final vote unless compliance permits advisory participation. Compliance reviewed it, legal reviewed it, Maya reviewed it. Then North Star made a decision that felt almost like fate. Though I no longer trusted fate, I could participate in diligence because my knowledge was material, but I would not be the sole decision maker. Every claim needed independent support. Every document had to be verified perfect. Daniel received the meeting request 2 weeks later. He did not know I was on the team. I know because he called me the same night, voice smooth as polished glass. Northstar reached out. I heard, they are one of the best funds in the market. Yes, this could change everything. For whom? He ignored that. I assume you will be professional. I always am. Grace. There was warning in his voice. I looked at the signed compliance memo on my desk. Daniel, there is no reason to poison this. Whatever happened between us was personal. You used my work in the company. You helped your husband. That is not theft. It is when the husband removes her name, denies compensation, and presents the work as his own. He sighed. You are still stuck on old pain. No, I am looking at current risk. You sound like them now. Like who? Investors, lawyers, people who think a spreadsheet matters more than loyalty. I leaned back in my chair. You taught me what loyalty costs when it has no contract. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, softer, I miss you. I closed my eyes not because I believed him, because some old part of me still remembered wanting those words before they expired. No. I said, you miss access. That is not true. Then tell me what you miss that did not benefit you. Silence. There it was again. The answer he never had. I will see you at diligence, I said. You will be there. Yes. His breath caught for 1 second. I imagined him looking around whatever expensive room he was in. Nora nearby, investors waiting, his future suddenly less obedient than expected. Grace, he said, do not do this. I saved the call recording, then I answered with the same words I had once said in the kitchen. Watch me. Daniel walked into the Northstar conference room like a man entering a stage built for him. Nora walked beside him. Of course she did. She wore cream silk, soft makeup, and the pearl earrings Daniel had bought after I left. Her hair fell in loose waves over one shoulder. She looked fragile enough to be protected and expensive enough to be believed. Daniel wore navy. He always wore navy when he wanted trust. Behind them came the CFO, 2 product leads, and a junior analyst carrying too many binders. I sat on the investor side of the table between Martin and Priya Desai from compliance. Daniel did not see me at first. He was smiling at Martin, shaking hands, saying how much he admired Northstar's disciplined approach to mission-driven growth. Then his eyes moved down the table. The smile stopped. It was almost worth every year. Nora saw me next. Her face flickered. Shock first, then calculation, then a wounded softness arranged for the room. Grace, she said, I did not know you would be here. I smiled professionally. MS. Blake. The title landed exactly where I wanted it to. Not Nora, not the woman in my kitchen, not the mistress who texted me from new numbers. MS. Blake. Chief Brand Officer of a company under diligence. Daniel recovered faster than she did. Grace is my wife, he said to Martin, with a short laugh meant to make the situation seem charming, though I suppose I should say estranged wife. We are in the middle of some personal matters. Martin looked at me. I answered calmly, the conflict has been disclosed and reviewed by compliance. My role today is limited to diligence questions related to historical strategy materials and model integrity. The CFO looked down at his binder. Nora's jaw tightened. Daniel's smile strained. Of course, the presentation began. It was beautiful. I could admit that. Daniel always knew how to sell aspiration. HaleWorks was no longer just an edtech company. It was an AI-powered learning infrastructure platform. It had district partnerships, retention metrics, student engagement dashboards, a brand story about empathy, and a founder narrative about resilience after personal adversity. On slide 7, Daniel said, in the early days, many people doubted us, some even walked away, but the people who stayed built the culture you see today. Nora lowered her eyes modestly. I made a note, founder implying spouse abandonment in investor materials. On slide 14, the procurement cluster model appeared, cleaner now, more polished, still mine. Daniel did not look at me when he explained it. This proprietary framework allows us to forecast district expansion with unusual precision, he said. It is one of the strategic insights that differentiates HaleWorks. Martin leaned forward. Who built the original framework? The room changed, not visibly, not for everyone, but Daniel heard the trap before he saw its shape. Our strategy team developed it over several iterations. Who led that work? Daniel glanced at the CFO. The CFO hesitated. Nora smiled. Daniel and I worked closely on the early brand and adoption strategy. I looked at her. MS. Blake, I said. Can you explain the difference between renewal behavior at the school level and procurement behavior at the district cluster level? Her smile froze. Daniel said, Grace, that level of detail is probably better directed to product. Martin looked at Nora. I would like Ms. Blake to answer, since her name appears on the early strategy attribution. Nora's fingers tightened around her pen. Of course, she said, the cluster level is about grouping schools based on, shared needs and emotional adoption patterns. No one spoke. I wrote down her exact words, shared needs and emotional adoption patterns. Daniel stepped in. What Nora means is that adoption spreads through district influence networks. That is not what the original model measured, I said. Daniel looked at me then. Fully there was anger in his eyes now, not regret, not fear. Anger that I had spoken out of turn in a room where he could not send me to the kitchen to cool down. Martin turned to me. Clarify, the original model measured budget approval windows, grant dependencies, procurement authority, and renewal risk at the district cluster level. It specifically warned against treating expansion as organic product enthusiasm without funding source analysis. The CFO's face had gone pale. Martin looked back at Daniel. Do your current forecasts include funding source analysis? Daniel smiled. We can provide a more detailed breakdown after the meeting. Please do, I added, with source files and revision history. Nora shifted in her chair. Daniel's gaze flicked to her, quick and sharp. For the next hour, we asked questions: customer retention, revenue recognition, related party payments, brand consulting fees, executive reimbursements, data room inconsistencies. The more we asked, the less Daniel performed. After the meeting, he caught me in the hallway near the elevators. That was unnecessary. I kept walking. He followed. Grace, I stopped because the hallway had cameras and glass walls. Do not corner me. He looked around, then lowered his voice. You enjoyed that. I did my job. You humiliated Nora. Nora put her name on work she cannot explain. She was nervous because you attacked her. I asked one question. With intent? Yes, I said, with professional intent. He stepped closer. You are letting bitterness cloud your judgment. I looked at the man who had once held my future in his hands and ripped it because he wanted me available. My judgment is the reason you are scared. His face tightened. Then he did something clever. His shoulders lowered. His voice softened. The anger became sorrow. I never wanted us to become this. I almost admired the transition. Become what? Enemies. You said that word first. I was hurt. You were inconvenienced. He stared at me for 1 second. The hallway disappeared, and I saw our old kitchen, his tired smile, my hands on his shoulders, both of us pretending ambition and love could survive if only I made myself smaller. Then the elevator opened. Nora stood inside. She looked from him to me. Her expression changed into something trembling and tragic. Daniel, she whispered, please do not let her do this to us. Us, there it was, finally said in the open. Daniel did not correct her. I smiled. Thank you, I said. Nora blinked. For what? For clarifying the parties. I stepped into the elevator beside her. Daniel did not follow. As the doors closed, Nora's softness vanished. You think this makes you powerful, she said under her breath. No, I looked straight ahead. What makes me powerful is that you still think this is about you. Nora tried to turn the diligence process into a jealousy story. It was predictable. 3 days after the North Star meeting, an anonymous post appeared on an industry gossip account. Estranged wife of EdTech founder allegedly involved in investment review of his company, conflict of interest or revenge arc. No names. Enough hints. Within hours, people connected the dots. Daniel Hale, Haleworks, North Star, Grace Hart. My inbox filled with messages, some cautious, some curious, some ugly. Must be awkward reviewing your ex. Women always say it is about ethics when it is about another woman. If he cheated, just say that. I did not respond. North Star Legal did. A brief statement went out that afternoon. North Star Global Ventures maintains strict conflict disclosure and compliance procedures. No investment decision is made by a single individual. All diligence findings are independently verified. Clean, boring, useful. Daniel called me within minutes of the statement. You went too far, he said. I did not post anything. Nora is crying. Then Nora should stop leaking. You have no proof she leaked it. I have pattern recognition. He exhaled. Meet me. No. Public place. 10 minutes. I am not asking as a founder. Then what? Are you asking as? A pause. As your husband? The word landed without weight now. Still, I agreed, not because he deserved my time, because men like Daniel revealed more when they believed intimacy could reopen doors documentation had closed. We met in the lobby bar of his hotel. Cameras, witnesses, neutral ground. Daniel stood when I arrived. He looked tired, not attractively tired, as he once had after long nights building the company. This was different, thinner, strained, the exhaustion of a man. Realizing his charm was no longer accepted as currency everywhere. "You look well," he said. "I am. New York suits you. It demanded more of me than you did." Pain crossed his face. It might have been real. That was the dangerous part. Daniel's feelings were often real. They simply did not stop him from causing harm. We sat. He did not order wine. "Smart, Grace," he said. "I know I hurt you. I waited. I should not have torn the letter. There it was, years late. Still not enough. Why did you?" He looked down at his hands. I panicked. Because I might leave. Because everything was happening at once. The company, my mother, Nora, investors. You were the only stable thing in my life. So you broke my stability to preserve yours. He winced. "When you put it that way, that is the way." He leaned forward. "I was wrong. But what you are doing now could destroy the company. Not just me, employees, customers, people who had nothing to do with our marriage. Then you should have built it." Honestly, it is not that simple. It usually is. The complicated part is all the work people do to avoid the simple truth. His eyes searched my face. "You used to love me." "Yes." "Does that mean nothing?" "It means I know exactly what it cost." He swallowed for a moment. I thought he might actually say the thing I had once needed. Not "I miss you." Not "I was hurt." Not "I panicked." "I stole from you. I used you. I chose Nora." I lied, but Daniel had always been skilled at approaching accountability without entering it. "I can make this right," he said. "How?" "We can settle. Privately. I will compensate you for the early work. I will sign the divorce if that is what you truly want. Northstar does not need to know every personal detail." I almost smiled. There it was. The deal, not remorse. Containment. Northstar already knows every business-relevant detail. "Grace, did Haleworks use my model in investor materials?" His jaw tightened. "Did Haleworks attribute my work to you?" "And Nora, early-stage companies are messy. Did Haleworks remove risk warnings from the original version?" He looked away. "Did you transfer marital funds to Nora while telling me we could not afford my school deposit?" His voice dropped. "Do not do this here." "Did you tear up my admission letter while Nora listened on speakerphone?" His eyes snapped back to mine. "Enough." I leaned back. That was Daniel. He could confess to pain but not facts. Facts had edges. I took my phone from my bag and placed it on the table. His face changed. "What is that?" "The video." "Grace, I am not releasing it publicly unless your team continues to frame me as a jealous ex-wife. But if you or Nora turn this into a character attack, people will see the moment you chose to destroy my future because she cried." He stared at the phone like it was a loaded weapon. "In some ways, it was. You recorded me. You performed." His mouth opened, then closed. A woman at the next table laughed at something unrelated. Glasses clinked. The bar continued around us, indifferent to the collapse of Daniel's control. "You would ruin me," he said quietly. "No, I am refusing to keep protecting the version of you that ruined me." He looked older then for a dangerous second. I remembered him at 28, asleep on my lap in our first apartment, whispering that when the company made it, I would never have to worry again. I had mistaken dependence for devotion. "Do you ever wonder," he asked, "what we could have been if Nora had never come back?" No. The answer surprised him. I explained. "Nora did not invent your selfishness. She gave it somewhere pretty to go." He flinched. I stood. "We are done. Grace, wait." I looked down at him. "If Haleworks is clean, it will survive diligence. If it is not, that is not my revenge. That is your consequence." I left him there outside. My phone buzzed. A message from Maya. "Nora's attorney just contacted us. They claim you are harassing her and damaging her mental health." Conveniently, they attached several texts. One includes her admitting Daniel told her about tearing the letter, sending to evidence folder. I looked up at the city lights. Nora had tried to build a trap out of tears. Instead, she had mailed me another key. The decisive meeting happened on a Thursday morning in a glass-walled boardroom 30 floors above Manhattan. Daniel arrived without Nora. That told me enough. His lawyer sat on one side. Haleworks' CFO sat on the other. Claire Benton joined remotely from San Francisco. Martin represented Northstar. Compliance attended. Maya sat beside me. Not as my sword, but as my witness. Daniel looked at her, then at me. You brought your divorce lawyer to an investment meeting. Maya smiled pleasantly, only where the two overlap. No one laughed. Martin opened the meeting. Northstar has identified several diligence concerns that require direct clarification before any investment process can continue. These include source attribution for strategic models, discrepancies in retention forecasting, related party payments, and potential misrepresentation of contributor roles in investor materials. Daniel's lawyer began. We believe many of these concerns arise from personal disputes between Mr. Hale and Ms. Hart. I opened my folder. Then it should be easy to separate the personal from the documented. The lawyer glanced at Daniel. Martin nodded to me. Proceed. I did not start with the letter that was personal. I started with the model, slide by slide, document by document. I built the timeline Elena had taught me to build. Original file created by Grace Hart, March the 12th, 2021. Email from Daniel Hale, March 15th. This is exactly the district logic we need. Revision notes from Grace Hart, April 2nd. Do not present expansion without funding source caveat. Investor deck from Haleworks. September 9th, 2023. Same model structure. Caveat removed. Attribution to Daniel Hale and Nora Blake. Metadata export. Email chain. Calendar invite. Claire's early concern. The CFO looked like he wanted to vanish through the floor. Daniel stayed still, only his right hand moved, fingers pressing into the table. Then Martin asked, Mr. Hale, was Ms. Hart compensated for this work? Daniel's lawyer said, Mr. Hale and Ms. Hart were married at the time. Martin did not blink. That was not my question. Daniel spoke finally. No formal compensation. Was she given equity? No. Was there any agreement assigning her work to Haleworks? Daniel's jaw worked. No. Claire's voice came through the speaker. Daniel, did the board know Grace created the original procurement model? He looked toward the screen. Claire, the company was moving fast. Many people contributed. That is not an answer. His face flushed. I moved to the next folder, related party payments. Daniel's lawyer shifted. We object to marital financial records being used in this context. Maya slid a document forward. These records include transfers from accounts used to support Haleworks operations and payments to Ms. Blake, who later became an executive. They are relevant to financial disclosure and conflict review. Martin looked at Daniel. We need to understand whether company funds or marital funds were used to compensate an eventual executive without disclosure. Daniel said, Nora was going through a difficult time. I almost laughed even here, even now. Martin's expression cooled. That is not an accounting category. The room went silent. I presented the transfers, therapy payments, rent support, wardrobe purchases, hotel charges during strategy retreats, consulting fees paid to Nora after she joined the company, despite no clear deliverables, reimbursements categorized inconsistently. The CFO whispered, I was told those were founder discretionary relationship expenses. Claire closed her eyes briefly. Then came Nora's messages. Not all of them, only the relevant ones. You should have taken the hint when he tore up that letter. He chose the company. He chose me. You were just useful. Daniel told me the model was basically yours. But wives help. That does not make you special. The lawyer put a hand to his forehead. Daniel stared at the table. Finally, Martin said, there is also the issue of public narrative. Ms. Hart has been characterized in founder materials and media appearances as someone who abandoned the company. We now have evidence she contributed materially without compensation and may have left after coercive interference with her admission to graduate school. Daniel looked up sharply. No, I took out my phone. Not dramatically, not with trembling hands, just the way I had imagined for years. I did not intend to include this unless necessary, I said. But since the narrative of abandonment has been used in investor-facing contexts, the circumstances of my departure are relevant. I played the video. Daniel's face filled the conference screen. You are not going to New York. The paper tore. Nora's voice came through the speaker. Daniel, please do not fight because of me. I should not have called. Then his voice again. A good wife does not run overseas when her husband needs her. No one moved on the video. My past self asked, did you tear it because you thought I could not get another copy? Daniel smiled on screen. You always need the physical thing to feel brave, Grace. The video ended. The room remained silent, not shocked in the loud way people imagine, Real shock is often quiet. It is the absence of excuses arriving on time. Claire spoke first. Daniel. He looked at the screen. Her voice was cold. Tell me that is edited. He said nothing. Tell me, she repeated, that you did not destroy your wife's admission letter to prevent her from leaving while your current executive listened. Daniel's lawyer touched his arm. Do not answer. Too late. Everyone had heard the answer. Martin closed his folder. North Star is pausing the investment process effective immediately. Pending further review, we are also notifying our legal team regarding potential misrepresentations in submitted materials. Daniel stood. You cannot do that based on a domestic dispute. Martin looked at him. We are doing it based on diligence. Daniel turned to me. There was no charm left now, no softness, no performance, just fury. You planned this. I stood too. No, you built this. I kept the receipts. His lawyer murmured. Daniel. But Daniel was past careful. You would burn down a company because I made one mistake years ago. The old me would have argued about the word one. This me did not. I am not burning anything. I am removing my name from the foundation before it collapses. You hate me that much. No, I gathered my documents. I respect myself that much. Claire's voice cut in. Daniel, the board will convene an emergency session this afternoon. His face changed. That was when he understood. The investment was not the only thing freezing. His board had heard enough. As I walked out, Daniel followed me into the hallway. Grace, wait. I stopped, but did not turn behind us. People were still inside the room, still watching through glass. He lowered his voice. I did love you. I looked back. Then you should have loved me when it would have cost you something. He had no answer. I walked away. This time, he did chase me, but only after the money stopped following him. The board removed Daniel as CEO within 6 weeks. They called it a temporary governance restructuring pending internal review. Then they called it a leadership transition. Then, when the findings became impossible to soften, they called it what it was: breach of disclosure obligations, misrepresentation of contributor attribution, questionable related party payments, failure to maintain appropriate governance controls. Daniel kept his founder shares, but not control. The company he had once treated as an extension of his ego continued without him. That felt right. Haleworks did not need to die for Daniel to face consequences. Employees needed paychecks. Customers needed service. The truth did not require a bonfire. It required removal of the person who kept hiding matches. Nora resigned first. Her statement said she was stepping back for mental health reasons. 2 days later, an internal memo revealed the company was reviewing consulting payments made to her LLC. The gossip accounts that had once framed me as a jealous ex-wife now called Nora the empathy executive who could not explain procurement. I did not share the articles. I did not celebrate online. I sent the relevant documents to Maya and went to work. The divorce settled in March. Daniel arrived at the mediation office wearing a grey suit and no tie. He looked thinner. His hair was longer than usual. He carried himself like a man who had spent months discovering that regret did not reverse paperwork. I sat across from him with Maya on my right. His lawyer reviewed the settlement terms: reimbursement for documented personal funds used in company operations, return of remaining personal property, public non-disparagement clause, written acknowledgement that I had created certain early strategic materials used by Haleworks without compensation, division of marital assets, divorce finalization. Daniel stared at the papers. An acknowledgement, he said bitterly. You want me to say you built it? Maya began. The language says MS. Hart materially contributed to early strategic modeling. I lifted a hand slightly. Maya stopped. I looked at Daniel. I do not need you to say I built it. I know what I built. His eyes moved to mine. Then why insist? Because I am tired of men turning women's labor into fog. He flinched for the first time in years. He did not argue. He signed. The pen made small scratching sounds across each page. When it was my turn, my hand did not shake. Grace Hart, not Grace Hale. Never again. Afterward, Daniel asked to speak alone. Maya looked at me. I nodded. We stood in the hallway outside the mediation room, under fluorescent lights that made everyone look honest and exhausted. Daniel held a folded paper. I found this at the apartment. I recognized it before he opened it. One of the fresh copies of my Columbia admission letter from the morning after he tore the first one. I had left it in a drawer, not as a message, but because I no longer needed all three. The creases were soft now. I read it. He said I waited. It says they were proud to admit you. Yes. And the scholarship committee noted your leadership potential. Yes, his throat moved. I do not think I ever said congratulations. No, he looked down at the letter. Congratulations, Grace. The words landed years too late, but they landed. I felt something loosen inside me. Not forgiveness, not love, not even sadness exactly, more like the closing of a file that had stayed open in the back of my mind. Thank you, I said. He gave a short, broken laugh. That is it. What else should there be? I do not know. He rubbed his face. I thought if I said it, maybe what? His eyes were wet now. In my first life, that would have pulled me across the hall. I would have touched his arm. I would have comforted him for finally understanding a fraction of what he had done to me. This time, I let him hold his own grief. Maybe you would look at me like you used to, he said. I shook my head. Daniel, the woman who looked at you that way died before I ever got on the plane. He went still. I had never told him about the other life. I never would. But the sentence was true in every way that mattered. I am sorry, he said finally. No explanation attached. No Nora, no pressure, no company, no mother, no panic, just sorry. I believed that he meant it. I also knew meaning it did not change anything. I hope you become someone who understands why sorry is not a key. He folded the letter carefully. Can I keep this? The question surprised me. Then I understood. He wanted a relic, a punishment he could touch. A version of me preserved at the moment before he broke what he did not own. No, I said. His fingers tightened. It is mine. For 1 second, old Daniel flashed in his face. The instinct to resist. To claim. To argue. Then he handed it back. I took the letter and placed it in my bag outside the building. Rain fell lightly over the city. Daniel followed me to the awning. I heard North Star is investing in Learnbridge. He said, yes, they are a competitor. They have a clean model, strong governance, and a founder who understands what she does not know. He smiled faintly, painfully. That sounded pointed. It was accurate. Are you happy? The question was too large for the sidewalk. I looked at the traffic, the wet pavement, the people moving around us with umbrellas and coffee and their own unfinished lives. I am not waiting anymore, I said. That feels better than happy used to. He nodded slowly. I do not know who I am without the company. Then find out without using a woman as scaffolding. He closed his eyes. A black car pulled up for me before I got in. He said, Grace. I turned. If I had not torn the letter, would we have survived? In another life, I had asked myself that until the question became a cage. Now the answer was simple. No, the letter was not the first tear. It was just the first one. I stopped pretending not to hear. I got into the car. Through the rain-streaked window, I watched Daniel stand on the sidewalk holding nothing. For once, that was not my problem to solve. 3 months after the divorce, I stood backstage at the Atlantic Education Innovation Forum with a microphone clipped to my jacket and my grandmother's pearls around my neck. Not because I needed armor, because I liked them. The panel was called Capital, Trust, and the Future of Learning Infrastructure. 5 years earlier, I would have watched a panel like that from the audience and wondered how people became confident enough to sit under bright lights and speak as if their thoughts belonged in public. Now I knew. Confidence was not a personality trait. Sometimes it was just evidence accumulated until shame had nowhere left to stand. Elena sat in the front row. Maya had sent flowers to my hotel. Claire Benton, now interim chair of Haleworks after the governance restructuring, was on the attendee list. Daniel was not, at least. I thought he was not. Then I saw him near the back of the hall. He stood alone, wearing a visitor badge, hands in his pockets. He looked different, less polished, more human, maybe. Or maybe I had simply stopped seeing him through the expensive lighting of my old devotion. For 1 second, our eyes met. He did not come closer. Good. The panel began. The moderator asked about diligence. Failures in mission-driven companies. I answered without naming Daniel. People often assume harmful leadership looks obviously cruel. I said, in my experience, it often looks inspiring from a distance. The founder tells a moving story. The team believes in the mission. Investors want the company to be real because the problem it solves is real. That is exactly why governance matters. A good mission does not excuse bad behavior. In fact, it makes accountability more important. The room was quiet in the good way, the listening way. Another panelist talked about data transparency. A founder discussed procurement complexity. I spoke about hidden labor, the kind that happens before companies have HR systems, before equity is formalized, before wives and girlfriends and friends and early believers realize their work has become someone else's origin story. Afterward, a young woman approached me. She wore a conference badge and held a notebook against her chest. MS, Heart, she said, can I ask you something? Of course. My boyfriend has a startup. I have been helping him with operations and fundraising, but he says paperwork makes things feel transactional. I felt the past move behind my ribs. What do you want? I asked. She looked startled. I want to help him. No, I said gently. What do you want for yourself? Her eyes filled too quickly. I do not know. Start there, and until you know, do not give away work you cannot afford to lose. She nodded, wiping her cheek. Thank you. As she walked away, I saw Daniel watching from across the lobby. This time, he approached slowly, stopping several feet away. That was a good panel, he said. Thank you. I did not know you were speaking. I was on the program. A faint smile. I guess I did not check carefully enough. No, I said. You often did not. He accepted that for a moment. We stood in the noise of the conference, surrounded by founders, investors, students, people building futures out of pitch decks and hope. I am leaving New York, he said. I was surprised, but only a little. Where will you go? Denver for a while. Consulting, maybe, something smaller. That sounds wise. Nora moved to Los Angeles. I said nothing. He gave a short nod, as if he had expected that. I am not telling you because I think it matters. Then why tell me? I do not know. Maybe because for a long time every important thing in my life passed through you first. That was part of the problem. I know. He looked at me, and this time I did not see a trap, only a man standing in the aftermath of his own choices. I am trying to know, he corrected. That was better, still not mine to nurture. I hope you do, I said. His eyes moved to the pearls. You got them back? Yes, they look right on you. They are mine. He nodded. Yes, a year ago. He might have said something about us, about memory, about how beautiful I looked when I forgave him in his imagination. Now he only said, goodbye, Grace. I held his gaze. Goodbye, Daniel. He walked away. No dramatic collapse, no begging on his knees, no airport chase, no final kiss in the rain. Real endings are often quieter than the damage that made them necessary. I watched him disappear into the crowd and felt nothing break. That was how I knew I was free. Later that afternoon, Northstar announced our investment in LearnBridge, a company founded by a former teacher named Amora Singh. She had built slowly, documented carefully, hired people smarter than herself, and credited them in every room before signing the term sheet. She pulled me aside. I heard you are the reason Northstar asks such brutal attribution questions now. I may be part of the reason. She smiled. Good, keep asking. I did that evening, back in my office. I opened the velvet folder where I kept the original torn admission letter. The two halves were preserved in a clear sleeve, not because I worshipped the wound, but because I respected the woman who had picked up the pieces beside. It was the clean copy. Grace Hart admitted. I touched the paper lightly. In my first life, I thought Daniel had ended my future when he tore that letter. In this life, I learned he had only revealed the person standing between me and the door. I opened my laptop and reviewed the final LearnBridge documents. My name appeared on the memo, my analysis, my recommendation, my decision, not hidden, not borrowed, not erased. Outside my window, the city moved in bright lines. My phone buzzed with an email from Elena. Proud of you. Dinner next week. I replied yes. Then I closed the evidence archive for the last time and moved it into long-term storage. Not deleted, not forgotten, stored. There is a difference. Some women burn the past to feel free. I had tried that once in another life, and smoke still followed me. This time, I filed it properly. I turned off the office light. In the dark glass, I saw my reflection, older than the girl whose letter was torn, stronger than the wife who had apologized for wanting a life. Not untouched, not unscarred, not magically healed by success, but whole. I took my coat, locked the office, and stepped into the hallway. No one was waiting to choose me. No one needed to. I had already chosen myself.